Hey guys, Pedro here to tell you about the latest from Underask God Emperor, out April 21st as a self-release. This album has 11 tracks, 70 minutes in length, and this is the band's second full-length studio album. They are an American melodic death metal band. The first thing that I noticed about this record was the length. 11 songs, 70 minutes. I feel like it's a little bit too long. It's easy to see why it got to that point. It's easy to understand the direction that the band have. This is an album that it doesn't become boring, it doesn't become repetitive, it has great ebbs and flows from song to song. It's a record that actually feels very dynamic, but at times you just want things to get a little bit more straight to the point. You want things to be a little bit more focused. And this album, because of its length, by the end of the record, it becomes a little bit difficult to see the forest from the trees. It becomes a little bit cumbersome. You want the experience to be as streamlined as possible so that the engagement and playability of the record stays as high as possible. You want to enjoy each and every single song, but you also want to enjoy the overall experience that these songs put you through. 70 minutes starts to take a little bit away from that. It starts to dilute that experience, at least towards the later stages of the record. Now, I see where they went, and I see perhaps why they went there. When you look at the songs, when you look at the individual craftsmanship that goes into each and every single track, when you look at the songwriting, this album definitely is a step up from its predecessor. The 6 years in between records allow them to grow as individuals, and that growth then is reflective on the songs that they've created. So these songs feel a lot more elaborate, they feel a lot more textured, there's a lot more work that went into creating these tracks. So I understand how these songs got to the point that they got in terms of being a little bit longer and then overall having an impact on the length of the album itself. It's definitely a result of better songwriting, but now they have to tie up that songwriting process with the ability of making an album that feels a lot more cohesive, a lot more concise from start to end. As far as the sound is concerned, this is a record that has their DNA all over it. If you enjoy the debut record, you're going to enjoy this album. It's pretty much a continuation of that record as sound-wise. It's their typical melodic death metal sound that is very guitar-focused and very guitar-driven from start to end is still there. The best thing that I can say about the sound is that I felt like there was some evolution. This record ties up with the predecessor, but obviously those 6 years in between also allows them to change and evolve as far as what they want out of their own sound. This was a record that felt a little bit more technical at times, that had more technical death metal attributes into the guitar sound, but still kept that guitar sound super melodic and super driven. So it's really important for any band, when you take a step from one album to the next, to find a way to connect the dots, but at the same time evolve with each and every single album. You don't want this record to sound like the previous record. You want this record to feel like a continuation of that album, but also add new elements to the overall sound experience. And I honestly felt like this album definitely offers that. When you add that technical side of their sound to the guitar-driven experience that's always been there, with songs that are better composed, songs that feel a little bit more intricate, songs that have a lot more texture in it, you're definitely moving the needle in the right direction. Where this album falls a little bit short sound-wise is in the production. I'm not a fan of the production of this album because at times it felt a little bit murky, at times it felt a little bit dense. This record has all the right attributes to be a little bit more polished, to be a little bit more, not overly produced, but to have a lot more emphasis on what the final result is going to be. If they were looking for more of a raw sound, more of a raw experience, this album definitely has that. But when you consider the texture, when you consider the layers, when you consider how they use the guitar sound to drive the songs with melodic elements and a lot of chunkiness and volume behind it, you want those elements to be as defined as possible so that you can see what each and every single element is doing. You can see all of their contributions to the songs, and you don't feel like everything is just squeezed in this very tight box. There are some tracks that allow the songs to have some more room to breathe. There are some songs on this record that sound-wise feel a little bit better worked, but overall, the overall perspective that I got, or the overall perception that I took from this album sound-wise, is that the production behind it felt a little bit short of the mark. The album required something that they didn't get. It required a little bit more of a definition of parameters around each and every single song. So like I said, you could feel the bigger sound, you can feel the epicness of the sound, but you can see everything working together and not necessarily on top of each other. Now, the guitars are a huge part of their sound, is a huge part of this record. This album continues to be a very guitar-driven album, and then you have two additions, or two features, if you will, on this album guitar-wise. You have Morgan Riley and Jeff Loomis. Those are interesting additions. I don't think they completely change the DNA of the sound or the DNA of the guitar sound from start to finish. They add a little bit of a ripple effect, and I thought it was cool. I thought it was interesting, but they have their own DNA, and I honestly don't feel like this is where you can break the mold, or this is where you can do something that's gonna change where you're going with it. I honestly would have liked to see them add perhaps a guest vocalist here and there. I think that would have added a little bit more of a ripple. I think that would have added a different effect to this record. Having two guest guitar players on this album on two different songs, while interesting, it doesn't really change the eyesight of the listener. I feel like it's a nice add-on, but nothing more than that. Because they have great guitar players already. They have a very well-defined presence. They know exactly what they want. They have their DNA sound really edged in stone. So I don't see this being something that can add massive value to the overall record. It adds value to the songs because they're incredible guitar players. They're obviously going to bring their own individuality into those tracks. But outside of that, it's not something that's going to really help sell or promote the songs or the album. Now, as far as the drums are concerned, I really enjoyed the drum sound on this record. I thought it had a lot of power, it had a lot of heaviness, it was very balanced from start to finish. But to me, the highlight of this record is definitely the vocals. Steve is a great vocalist. He definitely has the right delivery, not just for this band, but for any melodic death metal band that has that traditional melodic death metal sound and approach that doesn't want to deviate too much from it. He's right there. He has the right style. He has that harsh vocal approach that you could still hear it and understand every single word. So it's harsh but not overly harsh. He just has a great tonality, and he also has a nice range that he can work with in order to give ebbs and flows to the songs vocally, specifically to tracks that already have those ebbs and flows musically. So I'm a huge fan of Steve's vocals. This record, he once again delivers. He's on point. I also enjoyed the backing vocals, some of the choirs that they used. It brought a little bit of a hymn experience, a battle hymn experience almost, to the songs that used it, and used it really well in order to give more life to the tracks and in order to add a little bit more spice to the tracks. So I honestly felt like the vocal performance and the overall vocal approach was definitely one of the highlights of this record, with the driven guitar and that DNA staying alive and the additions of the more technical elements. Those two become the cornerstones of this album, and there are definitely two things that you can talk about and two things that you can hold on to once you reach the last song and you finish off the experience of going from first to last on this record. Now, this is an album that shows a lot of potential. It shows growth from the band. It shows growth as far as their musicianship, as far as the way they write music, as far as where they want to take their sound. This is definitely an album that you could see the steps have been taken in order to push the band not into a different direction, but to take them to a different level. The growth of the individuals is also the growth of the musicians. So this album definitely represents that, and represents it well. I just feel like with better production behind it, this album could be a lot better. It could be a lot more. It could have more of a lasting impact, and the production really falls short of enhancing the beauty and enhancing the overall quality that the album actually has. Now, as far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Eye of the Archdemon. This is the opening track on the album. It has an epic, almost movie-style intro to it. So it's great because this is the intro to the album, and then it becomes the intro to the song. The guitars are thick, the guitars are fast, they are melodic. The drums help create the backbone, and you see the guitars, the heavier side of the guitars ties into the drums, and then you have the more melodic side of the guitars kind of separating, working themselves in two different lanes. This allows the overall track to have a little bit more texture, to have a little bit more layers to it, and the DNA of the band staying intact across both elements. The vocals are heavy, the vocals are powerful. I really enjoy the layers, the vocal layers in the choirs that they used vocally, something that they used throughout the entire record, but they started off right with the opening track, and I think that's really important because it sets the tone, it sets the mood for what the rest of the album is going to be all about. So a song that immediately grabs your attention from a guitar standpoint and from a vocal standpoint, which, like I said, becomes the two cornerstones of the entire record. Then you have Spoils of War. This is perhaps my favorite song on the entire record. It has darkness to it, and it's very raw in the way it's produced, in the way it's put together, in the way that it's mixed. I don't mind that rawness in this song. I don't mind that lack of definition in this track, because when you have a song called Spoils of War, you expect the song to be raw. And then when you add the darkness, the overall darkness of the sound, and the darkness of the atmosphere, those are also elements that go really well with that more raw aspect that the song has. The choirs on this track really define that battle hymn, that battle cry feel that the song has from start to finish. The more melodic side of the track almost gives the song a certain bounciness, specifically in the verses. It's a lot bigger. It's a song that sounds a lot bigger, and it's very hooky in the chorus. It has a great chorus. The chorus on this track really helps sell the song. And like I said, I really like the choirs. I really like the battle hymn feel, but that catchy chorus that surrounds the overall darkness that this song has, it's definitely the selling point. It is definitely the memorable point that puts this song on the map. Last but not least, we are Long Hammer. When it comes to Underask, Long Hammer is not far off, and this track brings back memories of the past. I love this song because it's one of those that just has a lot of movement. It's a very dynamic track. There are some technical elements in the guitar sound and in the guitar execution that come into the forefront, moving you away just from the more traditional melodic death metal sound and including some technical death metal elements, allow this track to have a lot more to offer musically and guitar-wise. But it's definitely not one of those straightforward, super guitar-driven songs. This is a lot more texture. It's a song that gives you a lot more, that the guitars offer a lot more. It has a great chorus, once again, becoming very memorable, very hooky. The vocals deliver from start to finish, and they create a very nice impact in that chorus because it's simple, it's to the point, and once again, it plays off of the nostalgia of the previous record when it comes to Long Hammer. I love this song. I love this track. Definitely one of my favorites. Not my favorite, but it's in my top 3 as far as favorite songs are concerned. Alright, let me know, guys, your thoughts on this band, on this record, on the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.